Lots to talk about today. We talk about electric vehicles in Britain. We talk about the a Chinese ship porting near India, to much their dismay. We talk about the Russian oil coming into the UK. It's actually getting paid for oil coming into the UK, so UK is paying for oil from Russia. And finally, we'll just touch on some of the things that are happening in the US. All today on the Worldview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Worldview. I'm Chris Greco, your host for the next 30 minutes. I'm going to talk about different aspects, different things that are happening in the world, geographic aspects, and where certain things are geographically, so you don't get confused about where you are in the world. And also, we're going to hit some things that really, it's interesting how the U.S. media really is not covering some of this stuff until it becomes a chaos, or partially chaos, or possibly a chaos, and then all of a sudden, it's suddenly reported by the U.S. because, of course, they cannot report on a chaos until, of course, they either make one or get one from somebody else. So that's the way it goes. And of course, that's all about the clicks, right? It's all about the clicks. Even here, it's all about the clicks. So the first thing I want to talk about is the UK government electric vehicles. So that's the first area where we're going to hit. And interestingly enough, it says so what happened is BBC reported, and this is the first thing that they reported: 1 million electric cars sold in the UK since 2002. So that's all right, great, right? Well, let's talk about that just for a second. 1 million electric cars sold in the UK since 2002. Okay, that all people see is 1 million electric cars. But let's talk about this for a second. 1 million electric cars since 2002. So basically, these electric cars, and I don't know whether they're hybrid or true electric, but in any case, 1 million since 2002. So if you take 22 years, let's say you take 22 years, and I think this is important. So let's make sure. Let's just do this, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look. You're going to see me do it, so you can't sit there and say, "Oh, you made this stuff up." I didn't make it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this this million cars, right, and we're going to divide it. So 1 million divided by what? 22 years, right? So we'll say 22 years. So that's 45,000 a year, average 45,000 a year. All right, so let's take a look at this for a second. Let's see what the population is first of all. So the population of the UK is 67 million people. Now, if we take into consideration a third of that, right? So 22 million people are going to need cars. We get 22 million cars, right? Well, actually, I'm a little bit. I'm not that good. Actually, it's 41.3 million. So at the end of September 2023, and this is from REC Foundation. I don't know, the Royal something Foundation. Anyways, so how many vehicles are in the UK? 41.3 million. So literally 67 million people, of which is 41.3 million licensed vehicles, an increase of 1.4% compared to the end of September 2022. Now, if you take a look at this situation and you sit there and say, well, yeah, Chris, but there's 1 million electric cars. There was 1 million purchased between 2002 and, let's say, 2023. So we're talking 45,000 a year compared to there are 33.58 million cars, right? Cars make up majority of licensed vehicles, 33.58 million cars. Okay. LGVs, HGVs, 1.47 motorcycles, 0.14 million buses and coaches, and 0.86 million other vehicles, whatever that may be. So I mean, it's fastest growing category of vehicles are vans. So that's it. What's the most common car? Volkswagen Golf, Ford Fiesta, Ford Focus, Volkswagen Golf. All three of these are, they're high MPG, right? Miles per gallon. So that's interesting, right? So this is what they have, right? Licensing, statistics, all that stuff. But the bottom line is this: is that you have to take a look at it from the standpoint of 1 million electric cars sold in the UK since 2022. Love it type thing. And then you go back and you sit there and say you have 67 million, of which 33 million are what they call the 33.58 million cars. This is data stuff. This is data. This is what we should all be doing, is looking at this stuff, not just saying, oh, well, the media says 1 million cars. That must be amazing. Well, since 2020, since 2002, not since 2022, 2002. So that's a heck of a, when you take a look at it, it's like, it's probably not, it's all right, but not great, right? And then you got this one. Electric cars lords urge action on misinformation and press. What's the misinformation? Misinformation is this: urge the government to build consumer confidence and push back against what it called mistruths on range and cost. Range and costs, right? So flat electric car sales lead to calls for tax cuts. Interesting, right? So tax cuts, right? They're gonna cut revenue so that people can buy electric cars. You know what that would? I mean, I'm good, right? Boom, I'm good with that. But let me tell you something. This situation with people have to be careful about these incentives. It's government incentives. I remember buying a pellet stove. And said, "Oh, government incentive, you get $2,000. Government incentive." That $2,000 was taxed. That $2,000 that the government gave me was that I had to put that down as income. It was taxed by the United States government. So the government gives you a certain amount of money, but they're going to tax you on that $2,000. So you got to be careful about tax. Does this count as tax stuff? If it's tax free, that's one thing. But if it's not a tax incentive, folks. It's a incentive to buy the car. So just thought I'd throw that out there just to make sure that you have it. And then I went ahead and I took a look at. Oops, I didn't take a look at that. There was I wanted to make sure that people understood that many vehicles. Here it is. It was go back here. All right. So basically what happens is in a speech with the PM last year where he said getting to net zero was going to be hard, the message that the public got is that this was less of a priority. I do not need to worry about this now. But net zero is fast approaching. Baroness Parmenter. Now, Baroness Parmenter, I'd like to ask a question. Do you get driven every day to the place where I would say that to be a yes. So you don't drive yourself. You have somebody drive you. So that person is driving what? They're probably an armored vehicle, which uses gas. You start putting electric vehicles in armored aspects. That's going to be really interesting how all that works. But anyways, in any situation, there's an anti-AV story in the papers almost every day. Sometimes there are many stories, and they talking about range situations that are happening. I mean, yes, there's a range issue. I mean, what is it, 200 miles? I mean, yeah, for local shopping trips, that's fine. I mean, it works. But other than that, you're gonna have to plug that thing in every single night into your into your plug, which is gonna bring a toll on the electric infrastructure. If you don't have a good electric infrastructure, if you don't have a stable one, that's going to lead to a lot of issues having to do with electric vehicles. So hopefully we'll get ahead of the game. Doubtful in the U.S. because we never think ahead of anything. Everything is balloon squeezing to us. You squeeze a thing pops up. You squeeze here, things pops up. They're always like whack-a-mole or balloon squeezing. So yeah, they don't. People are finally coming to the point where they're going to have to do this. So that's, this is very significantly across the country. In Northwest, there are just 31 public chargers per 100,000 population compared to 131 in London. So public chargers, really, this is BBC. Thank you, BBC, for being honest and transparent. Councils do what they can in partnership with the private sector to respond for growing demand and local priorities. The best way of supporting transition net zero from local transport is for councils to be given long-term funding certainty, right? Public charging for 100,000. Look at this. East of London, the biggest one is London. Duh. Northeast, what do we got? per thousand here, per 100,000. What, 50? 50 per 100,000. Wow. I mean, Northwest are down 30. Up here around, getting around 50. This is probably close to 60. I mean, this is just amazing. Yeah, and how many of those chargers are operational? That's the thing you got to ask. How many chargers are actually operational with this whole situation? And so the UK, and that's an island. That's an island. It's not like it's not like the United States with 3,000 miles across. As a matter of fact, I was just doing some geographic stuff, but now I'm curious. I want to see how far people have to drive, right, in England, in the UK here. So this is if they're not driving, they're taking a ferry, right? Unless they want to go to Europe, and then they got then we'd have to take a look at that. So I'm going to get a ruler here. So we're just gonna figure this thing out. So we're gonna go right across. Largest thing here. So I'll do ruler and $235 miles across. 235 miles across. So you can, with an electric charge, you can get most of the way across here. Most of the way across, right? Let's see. Down here, 482 miles. So again, you need a charge somewhere along the line here. Hopefully not the northwest side, because we already went through that could be an issue. Let's see what the northwest side says here. Northwest side. Oh, that's a problem there. 30 per 100,000 people. You may find a charge, you may not, but good luck. So this is where data and good geography, you just take a look at that stuff, right? You figure out what's going on. Also, when we're talking about Europe, if you take the ferry across Calais and you take the channel, let's say, all of a sudden you come out in Europe where the charging station's there. So you're going to have to build a European. The EU is going to have to build that series of chargers to be able to make that work. So all that stuff has to be taken into consideration. I mean, or else you're going to have issues. You're going to have a problem. So this story: 1 million electric cars sold in the UK. Yay! UK registered 1 million vehicle last month, despite a big drop in sales. Right? More than 20,000 battery electric cars were registered in January, up by a fifth on year, and helped by generous tax incentives for company car users. So company purchasing more than 25 units in one go. Electric cars, 14.7 of all new vehicles sold in the UK in January. And all this has to be taken very, very. You got to read the story, right? You have to read the story. Very, very important. Okay, let's move from the UK to India. So here's what's happening. So the Chinese ship visits the Maldives, right? Or the Maldives, whatever you want to say it. Fans India tensions. They're not real happy with China right now. Not real happy. So let's find out where the Maldives are. So we're gonna go back. Whoop, let's clear that out. And let's clear out this one, and then we'll go over to Maldives. Let's see if I can get over there quicker. There we go. So where are all the Maldives? Where are they? They are right here. Here's India, okay? And here, ladies and gentlemen, all the Maldives, okay? Right in here. Sorry. So this is the Maldives, right? This is Colombo. So they set port here, Chinese set port in the Maldives, they set port in Colombo, in Sri Lanka, right? Why did they do that? Because they're giving money to Colombo. They're giving money to Sri Lanka. That's what they're doing. They're giving money so they can have a port of a call. And that port of call is daggum Colombo. So they are right here. So I mean, it's very interesting when it comes right down to it. And what did they put in Colombo? Well, that was a submarine. That's this is This is not the first time that China, which competes for influence with Delhi in the Indian Ocean amid a long-standing dispute over their Himalayan border, has sent one of his ships, right? Two Chinese naval submarines made a port of call in Colombo in 2014. Two Chinese research vessels visit Sri Lanka, close to the tip of southern India. So this is interesting. So it's very important to understand that India and China are basically allies. And what are they part of? Well, they're part of BRICS, right? So BRICS being Brazil, India, China, South Africa, part of that, which they're bringing in more countries, right? And also they're part of what they call the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. So this is a situation where India is having an issue with China, saying, hey, what are you doing? You're landing on you're putting a port of call in one area. We're not real happy with that. So all that area is really, really an interesting situation. So how is the U.S. approaching this? Well, the U.S. approves $4 billion sale. $4 billion. It's like we have money to burn in this country. I swear. I mean, $118 billion they have in this new bill. They're giving 50 some billion dollars to Ukraine every time you turn around. I mean, $4 billion sale of armed drones to India. Armed drones to India. This is very, very important. Why are they giving them armed drones, right? So why are they giving them MQ-9B Predators? I mean, this is what we're talking about here. So I mean, everyone sits there and says, oh, we have a problem because country A is giving country B drones. We're doing the same thing. $4 billion. I mean, yeah, they're paying for them, but at the same time, we're going to issue them those, right? So all of a sudden, they're talking about this Hindu Muslim situation that's happening, Hindu Sikh that's happening. I'm sorry, Hindu Muslim situation that's happening when we talk about this. It's not good. And the Sikh separatists targeted by murder plot in the U.S. Biden has demanded there be investigation, accountability in regards to the plot here in the U.S., and that there as accountability within India against these types of activities. But in the meantime, Delhi is plotting to assassinate an American citizen who advocates for Khalistan, independent Sikh state, right? And I mean, it's just really wild how this is going, right? So I mean, Modi shuns big spending in pre-poll budget. Why India wants to fence its troubled Myanmar border. It does. It has some really, really interesting borders, right? So India's here, and you have Bangladesh here, but then you have Burma, country known Burma, but it's now Myanmar. Myanmar is under coup. It's got all kind of militaristic aspects and everything else. So they're trying to figure out what to do with that. And in the meantime, you have all these areas here, and the Himalayan border is all upset, and their Himalayan border is up in this area here. So I mean, this is China right in here. This is all China. Well, Tibet. I'm sorry, it's Tibet, and then China's right in here. Okay. So lots of issues from the standpoint of geographic, political, military, but they're giving them drones. We're selling them drones, $4 billion worth of drones. Okay. I don't know if that's cool or not. I guess we'll find out. I guess the U.S., I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. Okay. Last story. Russian oil getting into UK via refinery loophole. So this was a couple of days ago. BBC again. Love BBC. Millions of barrels of fuel made from Russian oil are still being imported to the UK. So it's really is funny because UK is among many efforts to ban the import of all oil and oil products that originate in Russia in a bid to hit the amount of cash. But two separate reports shared exclusively suggest the rules on refining enable products made from Russian crude to arrive on UK soil. So here's what's happening. India refines oil. China refines oil. They have the ability, because they are allied with Russia. They take Russian oil, they refine it, then they sell it to the UK. UK buys it. They're not buying Russian oil, right? But the bottom line is that Russia is going to get a cut of that refining, of uh, providing the raw oil so it can be refined. So I mean, this is what we're talking about. It increases the demand for Russian crude, enables higher sales in terms of volume, and pushing up their prices as well, which increases the funds sent to the Kremlin's war chest. So I mean, this is what we're talking about. Um, Layla Stanley, campaign lead for the Ukraine team at Global Witness, interesting, right? Said that while the UK falls over itself to decry the war in Ukraine, it remains complicit in the sale of Russian oil by keeping this refining loophole open. Raw oil, sanctioned. Refined oil, well, we can't tell where it's coming from. I mean, what are we going to do? Have little markers in the oil so we can tell if it's coming from Russia or not? Well, of course not. And we don't want to piss off China and India, because they're part of a larger group of people, right? BRICS. I just went over BRICS, right? So India and China, they're selling oil. Basically, UK's buying it, and that's the issue, right? So so this is the situation with Russia, where you're refining, and that somehow that skirts the issue. It skirts the issue by saying we're not paying for Russian oil. No, you're not paying for Russian oil. You're paying for Russian oil being refined by other countries. That's what you're paying for. So that's what's happening there. So I mean, interesting stuff going on. Interesting. BBC covers it, but I haven't seen anything covered in the U.S. So I mean, maybe it has. I look at the U.S. stuff. I look at U.S. World, and then they are so keyed on this Israeli Hamas war. They just love this stuff. They love it, and you can sit there and you can say, Chris, you're wrong. They love it. This is reporting that gets them the clicks and everything they need. They love it, and they love reporting divisiveness within the United States between people that are pro-Palestinian, people that are pro-Israel, how they're clashing and in protests and everything else. So let me say something right at this point. Okay, Chris, you big mouth. What would you think? Here's what I would do if I were king. If I were an individual that wanted to do this stuff. Here's what I would do, and it sounds crazy, right? So here's what I would do. I would offer this. I would offer Russia entry into NATO. That's right. I'd offer Russian entry into. I'd get the EU, right, to get Russia in, right? Get the EU to let Russia in, to get Russia in. Now think about this, because Putin will say, "Go screw yourselves." He's gonna say, "No, I don't want to join NATO. The whole reason I went into Ukraine was because Ukraine was thinking of joining NATO. I don't want to join NATO." Say, "Look, we're offering you entry into NATO. We're not offering China entry into NATO. We're not going to offer India into NATO because, of course, they're not in North Atlantic, right? But Russia, I mean, there's people that aren't in the North Atlantic anyways. I mean, think about this. Ukraine really isn't in the North Atlantic. Neither is Poland. So I'd say, look, we're going to offer you. Putin's going to say, no, screw you. Well, guess what? It's going to get to the point where the Russian, the normal Russian, is going to sit there and say, screw this. I mean, this guy is he's trouble. They're going to start really going against Putin, because if we offer them, the peace, the dove and all that stuff, and he's saying no, or give us a counteroffer. What's your counteroffer? Yeah, we'll join NATO if you don't let Ukraine join NATO. No, we'll have you both in. We'll have Ukraine and Russia join NATO. Think about this. Have Russia and Ukraine join NATO. Have Russia part of the EU. Russia part of the EU. Now the problem is you'd have to check the corruption index, right? On both, Ukraine is still fighting that. They're making headway, but they're not all that great. And Russia, you'd have to have a corruption index on that and see what's going on. But what would Belarus think? All of a sudden, if Russia would say, well, let's discuss, let's think about this. Let's, all of a sudden Belarus would sit there and say, whoa, wait a minute, you're going to join NATO? Hey, we'll join NATO. All of a sudden, Belarus is going to join NATO. So now you have all these, and then pretty soon the stands are going to sit there. Kazakhstan, the rest of them are going to sit there and say, "Well, we'll join NATO. We'll join NATO." So it's going to get to the point where, you're going to have everyone in NATO. You won't even need NATO because it would be useless to have a NATO. What do we have NATO for? So all of a sudden, everyone would be the old one happy family thing, except maybe a couple of countries might be rogue countries. We're not going to join that. So that's going to be an issue when we get down to that. So interestingly enough, and one thing I didn't go into, and just thought I'd throw that out there. You guys can do what you want with that. Is Serbia? I wanted to talk about Serbia real quick. Serbia just came out. Serbia's over here, folks. So Serbia, right above Greece. There's Serbia right here. Serbia just had election. They brought in their people, and evidently they're not very happy at all about the new leader of Serbia. They're trying to get into a more left wing, center left and left wing area, and this person is right, far right, and they're still having problems with Kosovo. So Serbia is having some issues there. So they're trying to figure out how to make all that happen. Many of the legislators said they were not going to take the oath with the other legislators, the far right legislators, because they didn't want to do that. So they, they're all sitting it out. So we're going to see how that gets a problem, especially in Belgrade, which is the capital. So that could be an issue, and that could be something that may crop up again with us. But that's where you have all these situations where why let's see what Belarus says. Belarus say no, I don't want to join. Well, what the heck? Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, say, hey, Russia, if you want to join, we'll bring in all these people. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, we'll bring those all in. Finland's already part of it. Sweden's already part of it. So let's bring them all in here. So all of a sudden you have Russia sitting there. Putin has really got himself into a bind. He's going to have to say, no, I don't want to do that. Well, now he's got to say something to his people. He's going to say, no, I don't want to join NATO because they're what, corrupt? No, I don't think so. Because they're our enemy. Why? Because they're on this side of the European thing and you're on this side of the European thing. So what? Plus look at all it gets you with NATO. We'll actually protect you. If somebody tries to invade you, we'll protect you. It would be that type of irony that Russians would have to sit back and say, geez, what are we really fighting here? Are we really fighting this? And like I said, pretty soon the Stans would sit back and say, well, the heck with that, we'll join. And then Georgia would sit there, oh, we'll join. All of a sudden you have all these people joining NATO, and then pretty soon you could just say, we're out. NATO, we don't need NATO. Everyone's combined in one alliance. We're good, right? And what would it leave China? All of a sudden, China would be isolated, right? They wouldn't be part of NATO. They'd have nothing. China and India. So all of a sudden, they're sitting there saying, whoa. And Russia says, you mean you would protect us if China invaded us? Yeah, heck yeah. If China invades you, yeah, well, that's Article 5. We'll protect you. And Belarus, same way. If somebody invades you, we'll protect you. So all of a sudden, it takes that whole situation out and puts Ukraine in a situation where it's like, get rid of your work on your corruption. We'll talk about that. So that situation. So I thought I'd just throw that out there, just for what it's worth. A lot of people are probably sitting there saying you are out of your mind, but really, seriously, take a look at some of these countries that have been sworn enemies. Look at Germany and France. They're not the best of buds, but let me tell you something. At least they're not lobbing shells on each other. World War I, World War II pointed out. Sweden was massively. It had all kind of military aspirations, and it's sitting back. It's, hey, I'm good. Poland, Czechoslovakia, all these areas. They are now part of an alliance, which, look at the Warsaw Pact. Who would have thought that the Warsaw Pact would ever be an alliance? So, things, you can sit there and say, oh, no, it'll never happen. I don't know. Never say never type of thing. So and that's pretty much what I wanted to say today. I wanted to hit some stuff on the U.S., but to tell me the goodness truth, Super Bowl, by the time this comes out, Super Bowl's over. And something, all I got to say is this, is that, I just don't. I'm not even going to say the name anymore. I'm done. So good luck to both teams. I hope the best team wins. Of course, I hope San Francisco wins. So good luck to them, and we'll know all this by the time this program comes out. So you can all take care, and remember, try to have a worldview, because otherwise, if you don't have a worldview, You just basically have your own, and it's going to be a very, very narrow view. Until next time, this is Chris Greco saying bye-bye from the worldview.